Welcome back. You've joined the HOG Auckland chapter, and we've managed to find somehow a fine morning in Auckland. It's a Sunday, a couple of weeks ago, and we're off on a chapter ride, which means a longer ride. We're heading now to the Coromandel Peninsula. We're off to the Coromandel Hotel, being led by Road Captain Deano, and he's arranged for us to meet up in Thames with riders from two other HOG chapters, the East Coast riders coming up from Bay of Plenty, and the Waikato HOG chapter. Riders from there as well will be meeting all together at Thames and then travelling along the Thames Coast Road up over the hills to Coromandel Town to have lunch together at the Coromandel Hotel. So looking forward to that, especially looking forward to being out on the road in clear weather after having a particularly wet last few months. Let's not make any bones about that. It's been an awful few months for weather. Plenty of rides been cancelled, but anyway, not today. So we're running down State Highway 1 at the foot of the Bombays. We turned left briefly on State Highway 2 before cutting off onto Mangatawhiri and heading down towards the coast. We're on Miranda Road right now, and going to be heading down towards the flatlands leading onto the Hauraki Plains. And some pretty nice riding along here, and the morning was spectacular. It's a little bit cold, might look nice and sunny, but it is pretty, well, cold by Auckland standards anyway. Certainly had to have a few layers on, but it was certainly well worth to be up and about. This is, I think it was around 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning that we left our set-off point, which was the Z service station up in the Bombay Hills, top of the Bombays. And we're heading back now to join up, heading along the front Miranda Road, which will take us back to, or link up rather, to State Highway 25, which is the main road. Can't really get lost in it, just takes you straight on through down towards Thames, at which point you can either turn left for Thames and then onwards around the coast road to Coromandel. You can turn right and go up to Paeroa, and you can actually head around the Coromandel coast that way as well, go through Paeroa and up the Karangahaki Gorge, but we didn't do that today. We're heading straight down towards Thames, where we've arranged to meet up with the Waikato HOG chapter and the East Coast HOG chapter, or at least some riders from those both those crews. And presently at this point we're riding with about, I think we managed to get about 20 plus riders turning up at Z Bombay, 22, 24 riders, something like that. And as it turns out, once we got through to Thames and met up with the riders from both of the other HOG chapters, we end up with a total ride of about 30 plus bikes, 32, 34 bikes, something like that. So it was a good outing. We had a good catch up with people in Thames, and of course we were a little bit uncertain what kind of roads we're going to have on the way along the highway, because this is Sunday. On Friday the roads were closed on account of slips. There was some awful weather came through on the overnight Thursday and most of Friday, and the roads were impassable for a great period of time. We thought, well, it might have to be, Deano was mapping an alternate ride in his head as to what would happen if the roads didn't make it back again. But Saturday dawned bright and clear. There was a few calls made, and the hotel assured us that the road was open, should be fine. So decision was made, let's just put it all together. The photos here you can see is just a general picture of the crew that had assembled there. It was quite an impressive lineup of bikes there on Queen Street in Thames before we hit the road again and headed off down the main drag. Now from our meeting point, it doesn't take terribly long to get out of the town and onto the Thames Coast Road, and I've featured this road a little bit in videos in the past, so I won't need to tell you too much about it. To the left hand side here is the Firth of Thames. The tide it's quite a tidal area. The tide can go out quite some way, but during our ride through in the morning here, the tide was right up. It looked quite spectacular, and we were riding a little bit cautiously, I guess, because we weren't really quite sure how confident that we might run into some not quite repaired slips or some stop-go guys, or just generally some reasons by which we might not have good speedy progress as you might normally expect along this road. And we were pleasantly surprised to find that the road crews had done an amazing job, because there wasn't a whole lot of evidence of, well, there was certainly no stop-go guys. There were a few warning signs to, slow it down, so we kept it pretty mild-mannered along here. There weren't terribly many other vehicles on the road either, and I think that might have been because, typically on a weekend you might expect quite a few vehicles to travel along to Coromandel, but I think a lot of people were deterred by the road closures of just the couple of days before, with slips pretty much saying, look, Coromandel's cut off, but they repaired it so rapidly, so quickly, and to the joy of those people that did choose to go out and give it a go, like us, we were rewarded with a really clear open road, great riding conditions and fantastic weather, so it really came together nicely for us, and also for the Coromandel Hotel, I might add, because they got quite a serving of people where it might have otherwise been a very, very quiet afternoon. Now, as we're travelling along here, the road goes on for quite some way. I have done some editing and cutouts here, so it doesn't get too boring, but there's some quite interesting road way along here. Sometimes the centre line disappears and you've got just pretty much a 1.5 lane road at best, and which is all very well, but then you also got to remember that there are big trucks that travel along this road as well, and they need a lot of road, so in many ways it's almost preferable to be on a motorbike heading along this road than a car, because you can get really squeezed for room sometimes in some of these locations. Having said all that, it's a beautiful road to ride on, particularly on a day like this with the sun shining there, the water looking lovely and calm, tide right up. It's all good reasons to be out on the road and enjoying yourself. Now, we've just passed through Wilson Bay, which signals the end of the coast road, and we're heading now up over the hills leading through towards Coromandel, I should say. Now, as you top this first hill, there's some pretty spectacular views, going both ways actually. It's the Manaia Road saddle and lookout. There is a car parking area where you can pull off and take a view of the road, either looking down towards Coromandel or back where you come from. The views are equally spectacular. Now, we didn't stop there on it, but you can get a little bit of a glimpse as we come along past some forestry kind of road, and then turn the corner and come out across the kind of the inner inlets of the Coromandel Peninsula. It's a beautiful location. I was lucky enough to get to spend a lot of my holidays as a school kid down here. My grandparents had a house in Tikuma Bay, which is kind of midway between where we are now and Coromandel. A spectacular place. We had a lot of fun here. Unfortunately though, Coromandel has really been suffering hard. The whole peninsula has been suffering hard with the weather events of this year so far, and the roadway has been severely tested, its resilience. There's a lot of slips. There's a whole highway, 25A, that's been completely wiped out, which is usually a shortcut to give an alternative way to get into or onto the Coromandel coast and up to Whitianga, and that's going to be out of action for about a year with a collapse. But anyway, the roads we found today were working pretty nicely for us, and we are now coming through in the final stages of travelling into Coromandel itself. Turning right up there is State Highway 25, that'll take you around the top end of the peninsula, and straight up ahead is Coromandel town. We're on Tiki Road. Deano brought us to a little bit of a temporary halt at the roundabout here while we waited for the rest of the riders to catch up, and then we just rolled on through the sleepy little main street. We were planning to be there about midday. This is in fact about 11:45 on the Sunday morning. Nice early start to the day, and we pull up at the hotel. They're expecting us. Plenty of parking right outside the door on either side of the road, and had a great time. Everyone made their own way home afterwards. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching along if you're still with us this far. Ride safe out there, take care, have fun. See you next time.